What's up, YouTube? I'm Alberta26, and this is a quick breakdown of the Felhounds of Sargeras on Mythic difficulty in Antorus, the Burning Throne. Let's get it. You'll start this fight as you would on normal or heroic. Bloodlust on the pull, pop all the cooldowns. This is going to be one of your best burn windows when the least mechanics have gone out. These debuffs go out randomly, including on the tanks, so you may taunt the fire boss only to receive the shadow debuff. I found it prudent to wait to taunt until I'd been assigned a debuff. In addition to reducing the damage you take from their element, they each have an extra feature. Flame Touch will make you drop little bombs that explode and leave a puddle if you take shadow damage, and players with Shadow Touched who take fire damage will yank the nearest player to them and deal a bunch of damage. Players should attack the dog that corresponds to their debuff. Fire on fire, shadow on shadow. Burning and Corrupting Maw are still being applied to the tanks and deal their damage in a cone in front of them, so it's important to face the bosses away from the raid. Molten Touch is still in play. If it targets a player with the Shadow Touch debuff, then they are going to yank another player on top of them, so there can be some extra spike damage from that. Siphon Corruption, however, is a little bit more involved. Since Siphon Corruption deals raid-wide shadow damage, all the players with Flame Touch are going to start dropping puddles like crazy. So we had everybody stacked on the outer leg of the fire dog and kited him around the edge of the room so as to control how much of the platform we lose to the fire. Immediately after the first Siphon Corruption, there's going to be a Consuming Sphere, which has also received some changes on Mythic difficulty. There's now a 15-yard puddle that will be the sphere's target point, and anybody standing in that is going to take a ton of shadow damage when it hits, so don't do that. The sphere's detonation also sends out a shockwave that inflicts 1,000,000 shadow damage to all enemies, and then an additional 1,000,000 damage based on how far you are from it, so definitely try and get farther away from this puddle. This is another moment where all of the Flame Touch players will take shadow damage and hence drop a puddle, so be aware of where you drop your puddle for this portion. It's easy to obstruct the kite path if you're not paying attention. Weight of Darkness is also still in play. It functions the same as it does in other difficulties. And Desolate Gaze as well. Desolate Gaze is one of those unavoidable mechanics where a shadow player may take fire damage and yank someone to them. Be aware of this. Don't want to yank the tank. The order I just explained everything in is roughly the same sequence of events every time you do this pull on this boss, but the abilities have kind of varying durations and cooldowns, so as the fight goes on they start to get offset, and you'll find that you definitely get some unpleasant overlaps. Just be aware of this and don't get caught off guard. After a certain amount of time in the fight, usually the timing falls after the second time you've had to kite through Siphon Corruption. The raid's debuffs will flip, including the tanks. A taunt swap will have to be made at this point, and it is simpler for the tanks to simply trade bosses and let them run across, as everybody on the fire side just got the shadow debuff and vice versa. This does mean the dogs will get within 40 yards of each other and gain Sargeras' blessing. This is a prime time to pop a good tank cooldown as you're about to take a little bit of spike damage. That covers all of the abilities you'll be dealing with in the first round of them. Like I said, they start to become offset and overlap in different ways. That's just something you'll have to take as it comes. I'm not going to go through the exact order right here. In Mythic difficulty, the dog's health is no longer linked. They have separate health pools and they can die independently of each other. This is bad though. You need them to die at the same time. When one of them dies, it starts channeling Dark Reconstitution, and once it completes this channel, which is uninterruptible, it will heal itself for 15% of its total health, and then you'll have to kill it all over again. So you need them to die at the same time. As far as positioning goes, you'll be kiting the fire boss around the edges of the room. We found it was easiest to have the person tanking the shadow dog kind of bring it up behind the fire dog, but still out of that 40-yard range, so that the shadow dog is chasing the fire dog. That's essentially the way we looked at it. This allowed for easy switching for DPS if you fell behind on the fire dog, which you will. The fire dog is much more mechanic heavy, and therefore the DPS on that side don't get to put out as much. Keeping them as close as you can is also nice for heals. Even though they are kind of tethered to one boss, they can still reach out and get some heals to people on the other boss. That's not a problem. As I said, bloodlusting on the pull, prime tank cooldown moment is the taunt swap. You also want to use them if you're feeling like the corrupting or the Burning Maw is going to hit you particularly hard, definitely feel free to use them on those. Second potion, there's no proper like natural time to use one, so just use it whenever it's best for your class. Execute range, or if you're on the Shadow Dog, that can be an advantage in this at the end of the fight because that is less movement. There is an overlap of the Inflamed Corruption and Siphon Corruption, which will prevent you from kiting the dog and also cause people to be yanked all over the place. And this is a prime time to save some healing cooldowns for. I think we saved one on each dog just to make sure that everybody made it through. But that is a tough overlap, and that does come later in the fight. If your DPS is high enough, you might not see it, but we saw it pretty consistently in the last 10% of the fight. Obviously, the bosses don't have the same health, but roughly there. So that's it. Stick to the mechanics, stay alive on the Fire Dog, put good damage in on the Shadow Dog, and you should be able to down this boss. Oh, fuck my life. What? I think it was too close.
Kill him,
Burn. Oh, one, yes. Well done.
Invasion, boys.
Just like we drew it up.
So, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. I tried to keep it brief. Like I said, that's my goal for these videos, to be brief. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Check out my Twitch stream in the description and at the end of this video. And that's it. Game on.